All right, cool. So the next segment, we're going to talk more about wind breathing and actually not about wind breathing, but about another way to
Help
help.
to stimulate the areas that we need to stimulate, to sort of wake them up a little bit. Let's put it that way. And it's probably the best analogy that we can, make for that. And
Do you have a term for this?
I just call it, buzzing or humming. It really is like a hum, but think of it. I find it's most effective if we think about it for a number of reasons, which some we'll get into, some we won't right now. But when I think of humming and buzzing together, it's sort of like I coordinate it with bees, and bees have a pretty big history in esoteric practice from different cultures, right? So, and really as far back as Egypt and probably farther that we don't know about. And so from coloring and just what they do and how they do it, and they produce something that's, sort of like a quintessence of sweetness, and it is antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. I mean, there's just, it's this pure
Nearly
substance that's,
immortal.
yeah, I mean, it basically, you can store it almost forever and it doesn't go
Right,
bad,
yeah, yeah.
right? And so there's just, there's so much to it, right? And if I do get a little bit of that irritation from the wind breathing, whatever, the first couple of days, I mean, a little bit of, we've talked about that before, right? A little bit of raw honey, will help to clear that up and make your throat feel more comfortable until you get accustomed to it. And then it just doesn't happen anymore, right? But so yeah, so this humming is more like, I think about, the sound that a bee makes, when it's flying, right? Obviously. And so it's that buzzing sound, bzz, right? But instead of having it with my mouth open, it's going to be with my lips closed, right? So but I think of it, because it could be anywhere, right? When you're humming, it's like if you tell somebody to hum, they could be like, and it's more like a drone, right? It's just a steady buzzing sound or humming sound. But it's like, if I think about a bee and what a bee sounds like, it doesn't have to be that low. Find your natural pitch, and wherever that's good for you, doesn't matter. There's no relevance to having one pitch doing something more than another, not really. So when I do that, and what I'm trying to do is feel it again in this throat area at this point, right? So, and again, you can do it normal breathing. I mean, obviously you're going to probably breathe a little bit deeper than you normally would in your daily life, but it doesn't have to be super long. And one of the other things that at the end of the breath, you don't want to push it so far that, it's sort of sputtering at the end. Like if I'm running out of breath, right, and I want it to go, but in my head, I want it to be longer. It's like, you don't want that going on. So it's like, stop it when it's natural to stop it. So I'm just breathing in. And again, so it's like, it's not like at the end, right? Because I'm trying to push all that extra air out. I want it to be longer. Like, don't let your head get away with you, And so it's more of that consistent toning back and forth, and in this case, not toning, but that buzzing noise, and that it's focused. You're bringing your awareness again. No visualization. It's like I close my eyes, and I'm just doing that, and you can just lay your fingers very, very gently on the skin around there, right? So it's like if you put your middle finger on the peak of the Adam's apple, and a finger above and a finger below, that's going to give you the range, right? Because it's like here to here, it's all relative, right? So it's like, I'm just going to put that there, and very, very lightly. I'm not even pressing in. It's just very lightly. And just trying to feel, is there a vibration there? Am I in the right place? And if it's not quite there or just slightly there, I'm just, again, the more of my awareness I bring to this space, it tends to, focus it in that area. So I don't want it to be up in my mouth. I don't want it to be down here so much at this point. It's like literally right here. And that helps to stimulate that. Now you can get, really, even with 5 minutes, you can get a little spacey from that. It's not due to hyperventilation. It's literally due to this chakra being, woken up a bit, toned a little bit. It's like, think of it like a stretching exercise for it. And, where it's starting to stimulate it more, and then we're going to be able to, make it go further. So it's a really simple exercise, very easy to do, and, has a lot of benefits later on. But again, when I finish it, even if it's just 5 minutes, you might feel a little bit. So sit there for a second or two, a couple minutes, and just sort of be in that spot where you're not breathing like that, you're not doing the humming, and just keep your awareness there and see if you can sense that vibration even without doing it. So I'm just holding that last 30 seconds or a minute where I'm sitting there, and I'm feeling that slight vibration in that territory just by bringing my awareness to that spot. Because really, in the end, that's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to just bring our awareness to a territory and feel that vibration, sort of, first that it's there, and then second, be able to bring it up, right? Or shrink it down if it's too much. So you want to be able to turn it on and off. That's important. I feel it's an important quality. You don't want to just blow something open and have it stay open. That's not a good thing.
So how is this different than the wind breathing?
It's a little more coarse in the beginning, so I think of it more like it gives it a little extra stimulation. So again, it's waking it up a little bit, so to speak. It's never that it's completely offline, right? I mean, you wouldn't function well in the world if that was off. I mean, let's say the energetic organs in our body, the chakras and the the meridians and all of that, all of those things are based off this, this sort of, let's call them energetic organs, for lack of a better term. If they're off, I mean, they can be up or down, but they can't really be off. Like you can't, if you're functioning as a human being, you can't have that completely off. It's not possible to do that. It'd be like saying, well, yeah, he's got a condition, his heart's not beating, but, he's still hanging out, and, we're trying to help him, but, it's sort of a hard row to hoe, It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. And it doesn't work like that with the energy body either. It's like, it's on all the time. It's just that, things could be adjusted and, maximized or minimized depending on the situation, right?
It's like a muscle.
It's just like a muscle. Yeah. It's like, we do things for heart health, right? We do things for lung health. We do things for liver health, and we can help them function. We take things that help them function better. We do exercises that help them function better. We reduce things out of our diet that helps them function better, and add things in that help them function better. The same thing happens with the energy body,
so this
the
is
energy
like
organs.
Strength and flexibility for the throat chakra.
It's like toning, really. It's what I mean, like if I were toning muscles instead of like trying to build them up to make them bigger, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to do some light workouts just for toning now, to help stimulate the whole thing, sort of like cross training for your energy body.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the better this throat chakra is, or the more whatever, I mean, the more you can modulate it and use it, then the better you'll be able to use it to open the third eye.
Exactly. Remember, it's like, I liken it to a key. It's like right now we're sort of cutting the key, and then we're going to be able to use that key to open different areas for different purposes, right? So, everything else is like a lock, and this is sort of like the key, like a Rosetta Stone that would be used to decipher the other ones. It's, again, I think, I've never been able to find out if it's just that it's never been the sexy chakra, if you want to call it that, right? It's like, oh, third eye, oh, the heart, oh, whatever, oh, the base chakra, whatever. It's like, this has never garnered a lot of attention. And I don't know if that's like just from not understanding, or if it's intentional. You know, it's like there's a lot of things from old esoteric, you know, traditions that is, you know, they're hiding for a reason. You know, it's like not a good reason, just because way back when people, you know, not way back when even, it wasn't all that long ago that they were hunting people like, you know, us down. You know, it's like if you weren't part of the organized religions, one or the other, right? It was like sort of you were a renegade, you know, heretic, you know, all of those things, or dangerous, you know. So, so a lot of that stuff was hidden, you know, and a lot of the keys were hidden, you know, and I think I think it's one of them, you know. I think it is, because I find it hard to believe that there are a lot of people that, not a lot, but, you know, relatively speaking, I mean, in the circles that I travel in, there, you know, people do this, and so, but they had no idea about that, or they speculated, but they didn't know what to do with it, you know. So, but it's the key. It's the key. It's you know, it's alluded to in many writings, but nobody's really done anything with that. It's not that I'm so smart. It's just that I had somebody else tell me. It's right. Like, and then I did the work myself, and then I experimented with it and found, like, wow, you know, this is a big deal. I mean, This is a huge deal.
Right.
And it makes it so much easier to do this work. And so, you know, as far as, like, if people knew what kind of link that had to manifestation, you know, the secret, all of these types of manifestation things, if they knew, you know, how to utilize this in a good way, this specific chakra in the right way, that stuff would be much easier to do. They would have a much easier time in doing it. It doesn't negate doing what you need to do physically in the world to get that to happen, but it definitely, energetically, it definitely opens up avenues and helps to draw in a lot more help and a lot more energy toward the project that you're trying to do, and toward the outcome that you're trying to have. So it's a big deal. So yeah, so we utilize it for what we need.
Okay.
And that's it.
Yeah, and as people will see, we're going to weave exercises around the throat throughout the program, and again, build on it in stages.
I think it's better that way, because, you know, we could do just a whole segment on that, and maybe there could be a recap of all of those things at the end. But I think that sort of doing a piece here, doing a piece there, and weaving it in, it sort of weaves it through that whole tapestry of what we're doing. And,
right.
And you get to focus on a certain aspect for a short period of time, and sort of blend it in with everything else you're doing, and it'll make things come alive. And that's great. That's what we want. Integrates it really nicely.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, like 5 minutes here or there?
Yeah,
and
I do 5 minutes, you know, and really, I mean, you could do it like the wind breathing too, where it's like, I would do 5 minutes, you know, every day as a segment, but you could do a minute other times in the day. You know, it doesn't have to be just reliquate. There's no problem in doing it more.
It's such a simple thing too. Do you think that, like, having that idea in your mind before you start, like, I'm doing this to open the throat chakra to facilitate seeing energy, like, having that in mind makes a difference? It's like, is doing it with that in mind and stating it clearly different than just sitting down and humming?
You know,
or buzzing?
I mean, as I've stated before, I think that that's important for everything that we do.
Okay.
You know, to really have a clear, it really just sets the precedent of having a clear goal prior to doing anything.
Yeah, I'm just pointing it out again because it's the exercise itself again seems so simple and like funny,
right?
Or
yeah,
weird,
yeah.
Or something like how
do?
does me sitting down going open my throat chakra, or strengthen it, or whatever.
Well, don't forget, there's always, you know, we know that there's a correlation. I mean, basically we're saying, okay, let's say, let's not use a person, because it sometimes I think people get confused by that. But let's say if everything is energy, and you know, this physical material, let's say the chair is, you know, the part that we see as a physical chair is just sort of aggregation of that energy sort of coming together in a certain structure, and we perceive it from the light bouncing off of that, and we get that, and the mind turns it into a chair, right? It is a chair, obviously, but we perceive it as a chair. But if I'm looking underneath that and I can get my perception to change and I see the energetic essence of that, there's a correlation obviously between the shape that it takes here as a physical chair and the energy that's, really underneath it. It's more rarefied, right? So why wouldn't you think that a physical location in the body has an energetic location as well, or there's a correspondence between the chakra in that area and the physical territory as well, so that stimulating it physically would also have an effect in some way, stimulating it energetically as well. So as that grows, this grows, and so it's the same thing. There's no difference really.
Right.
We're trying to see a more subtle perception of that, of things that come through, right? So, but so we have to use that same idea in working with ourselves, right? There's the physical me, and there's the etheric me, there's the astral me, there's all of these subtle bodies that are there that are energetic, and more subtle as they go out. So that's the idea. This is the aggregation of energy that's physical, right? But even within this physical structure, there's a continuum, right? So there's, not just superficial to deep, but also, let's say the most or the least dense would be like the nervous system, right? So that's very, very, very touchy, extremely sensitive, and we generally think that the nervous system is that first physical aggregation of energy. When it first takes physical shape, it's basically that, because it's the most sensitive, and then maybe the blood system, and then as it gets to be more solid, it's like muscles, and finally the most dense being bone and all of that, right? And so, and everything else in between, basically.
So it's not like I'm a physical body and an energy body, but it's like a gradient.
There's a gradient, yeah. And so stimulating one will stimulate another, right? So it just has this sort of ripple effect through all of them, right? I mean, think about it like, if something stimulates my nervous system, it's like there are all kinds of cascades that are happening in my body at the same time, right? If I touch a hot stove, I pull my hand back faster, then I could think I'm touching a hot stove. Right. It's an automatic response, right? But it's still, there's a physical mechanism that's going on there, right? It's like the nerves at the ends of my fingers are, getting close to touching something that is extremely hot. And so as soon as I sense that it's the hot meter goes up, right? That signal is a chemical signal. The peptides change. It goes through the nerves. It hits all the way to my brain. The brain figures out what the hell's going on, sends another signal back to the muscles and the nerves and the muscles, and tells it to retract as fast as possible to not damage your hand. And so, but that happens in less than a blink. It's like light speed. So it's amazing when you break it down like that to think, how could that travel all the way and back to get that response before I could have the thought that that's hot? Right. It happens.
Right.
It's shocking, when you think about it. And so, but the same idea. So it's because that signal goes through all these many layers and from here and back again, right? And so the same thing happens, when we stimulate something physically here, even though it seems a simple physical stimulation, it is having an effect, because again, remember, how am I stimulating that? Well, I'm breathing air. Air is pretty, you can't see it, hopefully, if you're in a clean air place, right? You're moving it as a sort of a mechanical structure over this territory and creating this buzzing or humming sound, right? And so, but that's still, there's a bit of like invisible energy that's moving through there at the same time. Like we're moving the air. What's moving the air? Well, bellows of the lungs or whatever it is. But it's still, sure, there's something that's not like I'm moving water through there. Something that's tangible that I can It's more viscous. It's like it's air. So the air moving through those subtle things are helping this to transfer more to that energetic realm as well. So stimulating those things, it works. We have all kinds of things through history that people did to stimulate areas around the chakras, from tattooing them to whatever. I can't really speak to that so much, but it's not that it wasn't a practice that they would do that, and we'll work with some diagrams too, which we know when you concentrate on those, they actually stimulate the different chakras and help them to tone or to be built stronger and be more flexible. So this is just a physical way of doing that. Anything simple like that, I feel like is really great, because we can feel the effects. Why would that humming actually put us into almost a light trance state, really?
Sure.
You can feel a little, first time you do it, you can feel a little out of sorts when you first open your eyes and look around. It's sort of like, ooh, I feel a little buzzy. And it's not hyperventilation, right? We're just doing it very calmly and very consistently, and it stimulates in a way that, produces a certain effect.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I can't think of anything else to ask you around that. So, it's pretty simple.
It's simple,
but
yeah.
Again, we'll build on it. So.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. We'll
Good.
get on to the next thing.
Perfect.
All right.